So Chapter 1, Lesson 6 is equivalent ratios. The warm-up says Andrea spent $2 to make 10 prints from a photo booth. Later, she spent $6 to make 30 prints. So here is a table that has that information. And number 1 says express the relationship between the number of prints she made and the total cost for each situation as a rate in fraction form. So here we're doing prints to cost, right? So here, if I'm doing the ratio prints to cost, prints to cost, prints total cost, then it would be, what's the first ratio? 10 to 2, right? So that's going to be 10 to $2. And for the ratio for the second one, that would be 30 to $6. Very good. If you look at those fractions, it says the numerator in the second rate is 3 times the numerator in the first rate. So if I look at this first one, all I have to do is multiply 10 times 3 to get 30, right? The denominator, if you look at that, if I multiply it times 3, I'm going to get 6. Does everybody see that? So because we multiplied by the same number in the numerator and the denominator, what does that tell us about these two ratios? That tells us that they are equivalent to each other. Is everybody clear? So those are equivalent ratios. Here, number 2 and number 3 says, what is the unit rate for 10 prints? Now remember, the unit rate is a rate that is simplified to what in the denominator? To 1 in the denominator. Very good. So here, if I divide 10 and 2 by what? 2. By 2, what am I going to end up with? 5. Very good. So that means that she, as a unit rate, got 5 prints for $1 the first time. The second time, now let's do the unit rate for 30 prints. What am I going to divide the numerator and the denominator here? 6. And what's my unit rate going to be there? 5 over 1. And because we noticed up here that they were equivalent ratios, then the unit rates will also be equivalent. So here we're going to talk about using unit rates. We're going to use unit rates. Now there are different ways to determine if two ratios are equivalent. I want you to write ways to determine if two ratios or rates are equivalent. And the first way we're going to talk about is examining the unit rates, just like we did in the warm-up. So by comparing quantities as rates in the simplest form, which is a unit rate, you can determine if the relationship between the two quantities stays the same. So just like we did in the warm-up, when we changed 10 to 2 and 30 to 6 to unit rates, we got 5 prints for $1 for both of them. We know that those are equivalent ratios. Alright, so here we want to determine if each pair of rates is equivalent, and we want to explain our reasoning. So here we have 20 miles in 5 hours and 45 miles in 9 hours. So here we're going to change these to unit rates. If the unit rates are the same, they are equivalent. Okay, so here 20 to 5 becomes 4 miles to 1 hour, and over here 45 to 9 becomes 5 miles to 1 hour. So because my unit rates are different, what does that tell me about those ratios? They are not the same. They are not equivalent. Very good. So here, 3 t-shirts for $21 and 5 t-shirts for $35. And here we're going to write them as a unit price to see how much does it cost for 1 t-shirt. So we're going to change them both to unit rates. Our unit price, where we have the price on top and the the item on the bottom. So here, 21 for 3 t-shirts as a unit price becomes $7 for 1 t-shirt. $35 for 5 t-shirts. When I simplify that to a unit rate, we get $7 for 1 t-shirt. And once again, because we have the same unit price, then they are equivalent. So let's do these got it problems together. We want to determine if each pair of rates is equivalent, and we want to explain our reasoning. Now, please make sure you write the direction up there as well as the ratios that we're comparing. So the first rate is 36 t-shirts in 3 boxes. So here we have 36 t-shirts in 3 boxes. And how am I going to change this to a unit rate? We're going to divide by 3. Very good. So we'll divide by 3 here. And we will divide by 3 there. So the unit rate that we end up with is, very good, 12 t-shirts in 1 box. The second rate that we have is 60 t-shirts in 6 boxes. So how am I going to change that to a unit rate?
Divide by 6.
Very good. We'll divide by 6. So we'll divide by 6 here, and we'll divide by 6 there. Oops. Divide by 6 there, and that gives me, very good, 10 t-shirts in 1 box. So, are my rates the same?
No.
They are not the same, so that tells me that the ratios here, or these rates, are not equivalent. Let's write the sentence. So, for that one, the unit rates are not equal, therefore the rates are not equivalent. So let's do letter B. So now we've got 42 flowers in 7 vases and 54 flowers in 9 vases. So we've got 42 flowers in 7 vases and we've got 54 flowers in 9 vases. So these are our original rates. Now we want to change them both to unit rates. Very good. So here we're going to divide by the denominator. So for the first one, we're going to divide by 7. Very good. And when we do that, we end up with, very good, 6 flowers over 1 vase. So 6 flowers in 1 vase. And then for the second rate, we're going to divide by 9. Very good. And here we will end up with 6 flowers in 1 vase. So our unit rates are equal, so that means that the original ratios are equivalent. Very good. Or the original rates are equivalent. Alright, so example 3 says, Felicia read the first 60 pages of a book in 3 days. She read the last 90 pages in 6 days. Are these reading rates equivalent? Now here, we are going to change them to unit rates. So 60 pages in 30 days becomes 20 pages in 1 day. 90 pages in 6 days becomes 15 pages in 1 day. And you can see that the unit rates are not equivalent. So that means that Felicia's reading rates were not equivalent. Very good. Now here, I want you to write down this definition of a proportion. A proportion is an equation stating that two ratios are equivalent. So that says that if my ratios are equal, then if I set the two ratios into an equation and say this ratio is equal to this ratio, they form a proportion. They are proportional. Let's do this got it problem together. Marcia made 10 bracelets for 5 friends. Jen made 12 bracelets for 4 friends. Are these rates equivalent? And explain your reasoning. And once again, we're going to look at the different rates that they're given. Okay, for Marcia, that's 10 bracelets for 5 friends. And for Jen, that's 12 bracelets for 4 friends. So that's the important information that you should write down in your spiral notebook before you start the problem. Okay? So here we're going to write the ratios. I'll put M for Marcia, and she did 10 bracelets. I'll put 10 bracelets for 5 friends, and I'll fill in the words later. And we want to change that to a unit rate. For Jen, she made 12 bracelets for 4 friends. Okay? And now we're just going to change both of those rates to a unit rate. So we're going to divide both of them by the denominator. So we'll divide by 5 for Marcia. And what is my unit rate going to be?
2 bracelets for 1.
Very good. So we're going to have 2 bracelets for every 1 friend. And then down for Jen, we're going to divide by 4. Very good. And our unit rate will be?
3 bracelets for 1 friend.
Very good. 3 bracelets for 1 friend. So each one of her friends will get 3 bracelets. Does everybody see that? So, are my rates equivalent? No, they are not equivalent. So that means the unit rates are not equivalent, so the original rates are also not equivalent. It says Club A raised $168 by washing 42 cars. So Club A raised $168 by washing 42 cars. Club B raised $152 by washing 38 cars. Are the fundraising rates equivalent? And we want to explain our reasoning. And once again, we're going to change those to unit rates and compare. So why don't you guys go ahead and do that on your own, and then I'll put the answer up, okay? So you're going to have to do a little bit of scratch paper work here, right? You guys done? Man, I'm going too slow then. Okay, so what was your ratio, your rate for the first one?
$4
How much? Oh, look at that. I divided by the wrong thing. So I was trying to go too slow. I was going too slow. Okay. So it's $4. You guys just taught me something. Gotcha. So that's $4 for one car, right? And then what did we get when we were dividing 152? Divided by 38. Again, that's going to be 32, carry the 3, 12, 13, 14, 15. I just got to show the work. Very good. So we also get $4 for one car. Very good. So the unit rates are, equivalent. That means their fundraising rates are equivalent, right? Very good. So the last thing we're going to do here is we are going to use equivalent fractions. Now this I want you to add to your list of how to compare. Okay, how to compare. So the first one was to compare unit rates. The second way to compare to see if you have equivalent ratios is to use equivalent fractions to decide if they're equivalent. Okay? So for example 4, it says determine if the pair of ratios or rates is equivalent and explain your reasoning. So here, 3 free throws made out of 7 attempts and 3 free throws made out of 14 attempts. So what we can do is we can look to see if we have equal fractions. So we're going to set them up for 3 free throws to 7 attempts, and we want to question, is that equal to 9 free throws to 14 attempts? So if we can multiply or divide, scale forward or scale back, if we can multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number, right, then the fractions are equivalent. If we can't, and we have to use different numbers like they did right here with 3 and 2, then here the fractions are not equivalent. Does that make sense? All right, so let's take a look. Here's one that we do have one that is equivalent. Selena is comparing the cost of 2 packages of DVDs. A package of DVDs cost $9 and a package of 3 DVDs cost $45. We want to know if those rates are equivalent. Well, we set them equal to each other and see if we can get from one to the other. So here, 6 times 2 is 3. If I multiply 90 times 2, divide, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 90 divided by 2 is 45. So because we divided by the same number, those ratios are equivalent. Those fractions are equivalent. Mrs. Jeffries has 12 girls out of 16 students on the student council. The Earth Day Committee has 4 girls out of 8 students. Are these ratios equivalent? And we want to explain our reasoning. Okay? So, we're going to first write 12 girls out of 16 students. Okay? And we're going to set that equal to 4 girls to 8 students. Okay? Now, we want to see, can we get from 12 to 4 and 16 to 8 by dividing, because we're going smaller, right? By dividing by the same number. So, how do I get from 12 to 4? Divide by 3. How do I get from 16 to 8? Divide by 2. Did I write the right numbers up there? 12 to 16 and 4 to 8. Very good. So here, if you'll notice, we divided by 2 different numbers. So, are these ratios or are these fractions equivalent? No, they are not. Very good. So they are also, you can also say they are not proportional. The unit rates are not equal, therefore these rates are not equivalent.